Hello the internets, welcome back. On the previous video on Cindy, you guys asked about the guide on how to reroll gear, when to log lines once or when to log lines two and everything else. So let's talk today a little bit about that. Before we go into how to reroll, just a quick recap in case you are a new player. I know most of you are not, but just in case, how do you get this beautiful pink gear? You need to basically fill two requirements, right? So your character needs a tier 9 piece of gear. So this is a tier 9 piece of gear, and it has to be the same class, defender, attacker, supporter, and the same manufacturer. So in this case, abnormal. And then you have to level it up to level 5, and in level 5 you will be able to use a custom module in order to evolve it or transform it, if you will, into an overload piece of gear. And that is when you get random pieces of stats, and that's what you can reroll with this. Custom models. Now, custom models, where do you find them? Obviously, either on the shop if you are a big whale, or if not, just do your dailies, do interception every single day, and you will be getting rocks. Most people focus on Kraken, but you can do a little bit of whatever you want. If you are not on anomal interception, it's fine. Just farm your normal interception. You can also get rocks here. The moment you unlock anomaly interception, there is no reason to be doing the previous ones because this is better. So if you already have anomaly, even if you can only get to stage 1 or 2, it's fine. It's still better to be grinding rocks for your character than doing the previous one, because the special interception has way too much RNG. So let's say you already have gear, you are ready to overload your characters, you have a bunch of rocks saved up. How should you start to roll the gear, and what are the best stats? Well, there is few things to understand. First of all, when you first roll a piece of gear into overload, you are not guaranteed 3 lines on any character. In fact, you are never guaranteed anything but the first line. So if you go into reroll probability info, as you guys can see right here, probability of a slot 1 is 100%, probability of a slot 2 is a 50%, and probability of a slot 3 is a 30%. So you have to roll with the rock, then get something on the third line, and then roll that specific stat in order to get a good percentage as well. Welcome to the end game of NIKKE, wasting rocks until you can get good stats. Now, even though it's pure RNG, because it is pure RNG, there are some ways of making your life easier to waste less rocks, custom models. I will always call them rocks or rocas, so that's what we are talking about, which is going to be the custom models, right? So before we talk about that, really quickly as well, and important, guys, when you go into the website, all right, you guys have the guides for everything in there. You guys can also see what lines are good for every character. So you can go into Cindy and see what are the recommended roles for her. You can go into SBS or Alice or Dorothy or Siren, whoever it is, you can go into them and check what they need on their gear to perform well. Now, those are the recommendations. As usual, always take them as a reference, see what works best for you. And also, really quickly, as a general rule of thumb, 99% of the characters in the game are built the same way. Elemental damage, attack, and max ammo. Those are the trifecta, the 3 lines you most likely want on every character in the game. The rest of the lines depends on the unit itself. Charge speed and charge damage obviously are only good for sniper rifles and rocket launchers because no one else can use them. Hit rate is only good for SMGs, shotguns, and assault rifles because it makes it easier to hit where you are aiming, right on the center, so to hit cores. Machine guns are the most accurate weapon after ramp up, so you don't need that, and sniper rifles and rocket launchers cannot benefit either from it. Defense, it's purely a PvP stat. If you're a PvP main, you might be re-rolling for defense. If not, just ignore it. And then lastly, critical damage and critical rate, after 3.5 years, are still only filler lines. The exception on this, it's really big whales and min-maxers who understand the game a lot better and can go for more crit damage, crit rate on specific units. But again, for most people, it's a filler line, all right? That's it. Let's talk a little bit about rolling gear and actually the percentages and when it's worth rolling or not the first line and whatnot. I think the easiest way to see this is showing some characters that are not really well built, and then we can talk about what I would be re-rolling and how, and then we can go into Cindy to explain a properly rolled character. So for example, my Diesel doesn't have good lines. When I rolled her for the first time, I only got a max ammo and an attack. This is a piece that overall you will re-roll completely. You do not lock anything here because you could roll attack on a second line, but locking it's expensive. You need either to pay custom models or to pay locks. You get these custom locks on anomaly interception. These locks disappear if I pay for a lock, right? And I lock something and I reroll. That lock is gone. So you have to use even more locks again until you get, your desired stats. So the first thing to understand is that you never lock anything as a general rule of thumb unless it's a third line. All of these pieces can be rerolled without locking anything. Now, there are some exceptions. For example, if you get an elemental on line 2 or an attack on line 2 and you are like, okay, I'm feeling like gambling today, you could lock an elemental line 2, but only if it's a good percentage. If not, it's still cheaper to reroll the whole thing. Like, it is still cheaper to just reroll this whole piece than trying to lock this line and then getting something else, because it's a 30% only to get an effect on the third line, and that's what makes it so expensive, right? So on this diesel, for example, everything needs to be reroll, and I would most likely not lock anything. If I lock anything on this diesel, it would be this LA, and this is a 10%, which is an awful thing to be rerolling, because a 10% on elemental, it's a really, really low roll. It is right here. It's literally a tier 2 roll, which is awful, right? So it's not even worth locking that. But that's the first thing. You usually only log the third line because you got something good there. If you don't have something good on your third line, it's not worth locking. It's not worth keeping it. You are better off re-rolling that piece. Another character we could talk about, probably my aim is not super well rolled, so that can work as well. If I go here, for example, max ammo. Is it worth locking a max ammo instead of elemental on attack? Not really. Not really. Even less so when it's at 27%. So this is something you should not do. Don't do as I do, do as I say, right? Because it's a low roll and it's a max ammo. So this is a waste of rocks. Literally, a waste of rocks. If you're going to an other piece, same thing, nothing in here. This is a full reroll because there is no elemental, only an attack on the second line. This attack is a good roll, but again, no elemental, so it's like, do you want to be wasting more rocks there? Not really. Same thing here. We'll go back into the same thing. These two pieces are both to reroll, right? This is the one with the lock here, and then this one here, which is elemental on the first line, defense on the third line. Even though it's a good percentage, so it's lower priority, 23, you want to reroll to put this elemental on second or third line. And let's say for her boots, only one elemental. This is a reroll because there is nothing else. Now, you reroll when you have a priority for a character you like, right? For example, right now, most people are rolling either wind characters for the raid or the newly added Cindy. And in here, it's your RNG. For example, some people took 200 rocks to get something decent. Others, we were a bit more lucky and we used like 80 rocks. I think I used in total for my Cindy. It's nothing but RNG. The only thing to remember, like I said, is you only log second and third line if they are good. Only if they are good. If they are not good, it's not even worth it. For example, here, I can log this elemental, no problem, because I know the other two are the only ones that I do want to reroll, right? I want a higher attack percentage. If not, I would not reroll. The other thing, outside of rerolling the lines themselves, is resetting attributes. And this is exactly the same thing, but a bit cheaper. So, for example, my boots here have good lines, but bad percentages in the sense of no blue-black line. So I could reroll the attributes here without locking anything, trying to fish for a higher elemental or a higher attack, right? You could be fishing for that. But it heavily depends on how many rocks you have at the moment and how many characters you have on your backlog. For example, another bad example on how not to roll your character, and to put this so you guys can see why you should not be locking first lines. This piece took me more than 200 rocks. One piece, because I refused to unlock discharge damage. So this is a good example of why you do not lock first lines, even if they are black lines. Because I'm not even talking, by the way, even about getting elemental black line. I'm talking about getting elemental on the third line. Took me 200 rolls because it was omega unlucky and because I also was logging the charge speed, right? So this is what you should not be doing. You should not be locking those first pieces because they are omega expensive and you still want to be rolling for something else. For example, right now, I most likely will end up rolling for attack on her on a couple pieces. So, to summarize once again, you only lock third lines. You barely will ever lock a second line. The only reason to lock a second line is because you actually got an attack or elemental on the second line and it's a blue or a black line. You could also lock a charge speed or charge damage line if it's a character that heavily benefits from that. Let's say you are rolling on your Neon and you got a black line on her second or third line. It's actually, you can't keep that. It's fine to keep like a charge speed black or blue line on someone like Neon because she heavily benefits from that, right? But only on those specific cases. So always check the website, always see what's actually necessary on those units, and then you only reroll after you have good lines or enough rocks for it. To me, right now, for example, for Cindy, I'm keeping everything like it is. She already got the good piece right here. She already got the good piece right there. She has a really bad elemental percentage in here, but it is a blue attack. So I will be locking this and I will be rerolling for this elemental to be a higher percentage. But at the moment, because I'm a broke bitch saving for Marciana, I'm only locking my boots. Sorry, I'm only rerolling my boots and I'm rerolling the percentage, trying to pray to the gods that I get a 0.1% chance of getting actually not maximum capacity. I actually want to be getting wait, how can I get the other lines? Oh, there we go. Oh my god, it's actually showing all of them one by one. So I do want to be getting either attack or elemental on a high one, which is going to be, you know, a 1% chance of getting those. But, you know, we're gambling addicts, so we actually go for that. That's what I've been doing. It's taking forever because most of the times you are going to get fucked because we already have a 19% and a 9%, which are pretty high rolls to begin with. So this is kind of a waste of rocks. You are better off re-rolling this elemental for a higher percentage to get a 19 instead in there. But I'm just copying. Okay, I'm copying that I can get another black line on Cindy. So that's basically everything and my recommendations on when to lock or not and when to reroll or not, and the TLDR on how the system works. It's mostly RNG, so be patient, guys. Like most people they don't have a lot of black and blue lines. There are a lot of old players who are still re-rolling their favorite characters to try to get lucky. The system is not good. It's one of the most unfriendly systems on most gachas I've played because the amount of rocks we get is not good. Like, the system wouldn't be as bad if we were getting 10 times the amount of rocks. Because the amount of characters we get every single month and the rates we get and everything means you have to be re-rolling consistently and constantly different elements, not only your meta characters, right? So it is what it is, says Lavi. That's it for this one. As usual, we are live every single day. Any questions you guys might have, feel free to leave a comment down below. Good luck with your pool, the internet, and I'll see you in the next one.